stock which has been buzzing around and continues to buzz today is Godrej Industries. Of course, a buyback announcement is in place, price not exceeding 275 rupees and the whole buyback exercise not exceeding 99 crore rupees. Stocks up 10% on 1 million shares. Adi Godrej is with us now to talk about that. Adi, morning. Thanks very much for joining in. SEBI seems to be now saying that it will be clear that all companies announcing buybacks should utilize most of that amount in any case. You have clear intentions of using up the entire 99 crores?
Well, I can't say that. We have to provide a minimum buyback percentage, and that will be adhered to.
Mr. Godrej, morning. What do you make of the recommendations that are being talked about, though, by SEBI, that there has to be a statutory minimum number, that every week the company that intends to do a buyback needs to buy back a certain amount if it is indeed below the maximum price that's been indicated? Do you think these are fair stipulations?
No, I don't think so. I think the company should buy back as and when it feels necessary. There should be, to my mind, a time limit set, and then there should perhaps be a minimum buyback that would be done, because the purpose of buybacks is when management or a board feels that the share is undervalued, and if continuing shareholders can benefit in terms of earnings per share from a buyback, that's the time a buyback should be done. If during a buyback the share price rises sufficiently, then doing a buyback makes no sense. Also, if the maximum price at which a buyback is allowed has reached, then you can't do the buyback. So there are various circumstances in which a buyback should not be done. But if some companies announce a buyback only for the sake of announcement and are not serious about the buyback, then that should not be tolerated either. So there must be a buyer media found, and perhaps some rules to that effect provided. In our group, we have always completed all the buybacks we have announced in the past.
That's the point, Adi, because it's a grey area on where you draw, where the regulator draws the line. I mean, for your case, your price, the top price is 275. The current price is 98. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not conceivable that the stock in the next 7 days will run away to 275, giving you ample time to complete that buyback. So, I was asking whether your intention is to...
we have a time limit set. I think we have to complete the buyback by July. That was the time limit set. And you must understand that in our case, our application was filed with SEBI almost a year ago. They took a long time to clear it.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about the jewel in your crown as the market perceives it, Godrej Properties. Could you just give us some more details on when you expect serious revenue contributions coming in from the Ahmedabad market for this?
Unfortunately, Udayan, I'll be constrained to speak only about the property sector as a whole, because we have a draft red herring prospectus from Godrej Properties still with SEBI, so I'm not allowed to speak too much on Godrej Properties' own position. But I'll be happy to speak about the industry as a whole and where I feel the sector is headed.
Okay, Mr. Godrej, before we do that, just on the core business as well, both for soaps and hair colors, this time around the raw material to sales ratio actually slipped a little bit for Godrej. Are you sensing that the pressure from raw materials may be easing off?
Well, it was easing off until about a month or two ago. But now, because the global economy generally seems to be recovering, especially in China, India, and a certain extent in the United States, commodity prices are rising again. So we have, as you have seen, we have had a major rise in crude oil prices. Vegetable oil prices also from the bottom levels have risen quite considerably. So it's difficult to project. But we have a good cover of vegetable oils for the next 4 months. At very low rates, so we expect strong profitability until then. After that, it will depend on how vegetable oil prices pan out for our soap business and how soap prices pan out based on competitor activity.
We believe that Hindustan Unilever has lost quite a bit of market share across categories in the last month and the last quarter. Has Godrej been able to carve out any of that market share?
Well, our market share in soaps, which is the only major category in which we compete with Hindustan Unilever, has increased in the last year.
You spoke about that IPO for Godrej Properties. Of course, the markets went into a tailspin after you filed. Any chance of revisiting it in the next 3-6 months now that the markets have improved?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. We are awaiting the clearance of the draft red herring prospectus. Now, fortunately, SEBI is allowing 12 months after the clearance of a prospectus instead of 3 months earlier. And we strongly feel that there will be a good opportunity to conclude the IPO during that period. We are awaiting the clearance of the draft red herring prospectus from SEBI. We would like to have an IPO. Of course, as you know, there haven't been too many IPOs. I believe 1 or 2 IPOs are likely to take place soon. And I think the markets are improving. I think the economy is improving. I think the property sector is improving. And I think in a few months' time there will be an opportunity, and we would like to conclude a public offering if that opportunity arises.
From what you're seeing then, Mr. Godrej, both in terms of the economy and demand, do you think FMCG companies might have to work with or factor in price cuts, or might they have tided over that sort of a phase?
No, I don't think there is any scope for price cuts now, because commodity prices have started rising again. Crude oil prices have started rising again. I think prices should be stable for a couple of months. After that, if commodity prices take an upward move again, there could be price increases, in fact. So I don't see any opportunity for price cuts now in the FMCG sector. Demand continues to be strong. FMCG is doing well, and I think that will continue.
Just to labor that point about the buyback issue, Mr. Godrej, I take your point that it was intended to be done a long time back and that you do intend to honor the minimum ratio that you set out. But would you say the intent is as honorable for all companies? Because the criticism oftentimes is that it's probably a ruse to ramp up the share price a little bit, get it trading at a higher level, and then call off the buyback maybe.
Well, like everything, Mitali, I think one should rely on the corporate governance of the company. Some may have good corporate governance, some don't. I mean, it's the same in whether you buy the shares of a company or not. And I think the buyback is clear. We have every intention of doing the buyback, not just the minimum quantity. We would like to complete the buyback as far as possible. But there could be physical constraints in completing a buyback. And we don't announce a buyback unless we have a very strong intention to do the buyback. For example, in Godrej Consumer Products, we announced a buyback a couple of months ago. We completed it in a short period of time and have announced the completion.
Adib, you said you will speak about the property market, particular reference to Gujarat and Ahmedabad, where Godrej Properties, a fair amount of properties are established, a land bank is established. Has that market stabilized? Are you seeing any signs of an upturn or stabilization in that market?
Well, surprisingly, in the Ahmedabad market, there wasn't any major fall either. And there hasn't been, there wasn't a major fall, and there hasn't been a major rise. So the prices are more or less stable for the last couple of years. We think there is very strong demand because the Gujarat economy is doing exceedingly well. So we feel the demand will be strong. But I think generally speaking, overall in India, I see a huge potential demand for affordable housing. And what I mean by affordable housing is housing at below, say, 25 lakhs a flat. So depending on where it is, in some places it might have to be as low as 5 to 10 lakhs a flat, and in some places which are more centrally located in the large urban areas, it may have to be 15 to 25 lakhs. But there are, for the first time in many years, a series of situations have come together. One is construction costs have come down, cement, steel prices are down, land costs are down, and mortgage rates are down. All this has come together, and that will, to my mind, create a huge demand for affordable housing over the next 2 to 5 years. And I think when you satisfy that demand, that in turn will be a major boost for the GDP growth of India.
Before you go, Adib, just your thoughts on the election results next Saturday. Which way do you think is the wind blowing, and what are your key hopes and fears surrounding the event of next Saturday?
Well, I do hope we have a reasonably compact coalition with one of the major parties as the major constituent of that coalition.